Hi friends, I have a hot topic to talk about today. And this is the topic about how couples negotiate retirement together. So it may not sound hot, but from what I've heard, there are quite a few couples who struggle with how things shift and change when both of you are retired. Sometimes one person retires early or works from home, and then their spouse retires and they're in the house all the time. And it's so frustrating. Or we can talk about the expectations that we have about how things will go when we're both retired. Now, honestly, my husband and I didn't have this problem quite so much because most of our married life happened in the second half of life. But still, we were both working when we got married. So let's talk about how we make these shifts and adjustments in second half of life. My name is Jeanette Slater, and welcome to this Further Journey Aging with Purpose channel. Today we're talking about how couples or even best friends negotiate the shifts and changes after retirement. I think one of the reasons is because when we retire and we don't have all those external expectations on who we are and on our time, we actually have the bandwidth. We have the time and thought space to be able to come more into our own. So people who have been very quiet because their job demanded that they be quiet, maybe in retirement, they become much more extroverted and chatty. On the flip side, a lot of people who have had to put on this extrovert mask in order to work their job come home and they just want to be introverted. They just want to read a book rather than go out and party all the time or see people all the time. And our spouses can feel like we're changing, like everything's changing. But we have to respect ourselves and respect the other person's space to be able to, in a way, get to know themselves better, and maybe an opportunity for us to get to know them in a new light. It's a great time for some good conversations around that. Who are we and how do we want to operate together? So one of the big things we have to look at is expectations. What are our expectations? Because often the frustrations that come are because we had expectations that our friend or our spouse are not meeting. What are some of those expectations? Well, she may say, I thought he was finally going to get around to fixing all the things around the house, but all he does is sit and watch sports. Or he may say, I thought she was finally going to be keeping up the house, but all she does is read and talk to her friends. Another is, now that I'm retired, I'm expected to help out around the house. That's not what I retired in order to do. Or I thought that once we were retired, we would do more things together. But my spouse is just off doing their own thing with their friends, and we hardly do anything together. Expectations, just if they're not rooted in reality, can bring out a lot of conflict. And it's not necessarily because anybody's doing anything wrong, they're just doing it differently. So again, when we have these expectations, if we don't talk about them, sometimes we haven't even told ourselves what these expectations are. And so it just feels like something's off, but we can't put our finger on it. But if we can articulate what's bothering us, then maybe we can first of all look at whether our expectations are reasonable. And second, we can talk with our friend or our spouse and say, these are the things I'm observing. Let's talk about what's going on with you and with me, and how can we work this out together? If we don't talk about it, those expectations can really ruin a retirement season in life. The thing about second half of life is that the rules are changing. The way we did life, the expectations of our first half of life are changing, and we need to begin to recognize some of those changes. And when the rules change and they haven't been articulated, somebody's going to feel like the other person is not acting the way they're supposed to, they're not doing the things that they're supposed to which is an expectation, but it may also be a rule, like the rule that she does all the cooking. And so she retires and he retires and she goes, I don't want to have to do all the cooking anymore. And he can get upset about that, or he can see that as a new challenge of how to maybe expand a new aspect of his personality or a new talent. I know that there are some guys that have really gotten into cooking in second half of life, and they really enjoy it. And sharing that with their spouse just makes life easier. So what are some of the expectations that you're coming into second half of life and into retirement? Expectations about yourself, first of all, and expectations about your spouse. Think about other rules of life that you've operated under. Maybe the woman feels like the kitchen is my kitchen, stay out of the kitchen. And the husband is like, I'd kind of like to learn how to cook. Well, those are differing expectations and differing rules. How about the rule we always go to church on Sunday? And then you retire and maybe one or the other is like, you know what? I think I just want to stay home tomorrow instead of going to church. What? We have always, this is the way we have always done it. When you find yourself saying that, check yourself and say, is this a rule that maybe we need to change? Maybe we need to make some adjustments. And of course, one of the big things is sharing space. Some people share space better than others. But if you are used to having the house to yourself and being quiet, and suddenly your spouse is home and the TV is on all the time, or it's on the wrong channel, and it's just not a place where you start to feel at home, because it's like somebody has taken over your space. So you have to negotiate. You have to talk about that. Fortunately, my husband and I both like quiet mornings. But when I was single, I had a roommate that liked to get up in the morning and just start chattering and talking about this and how their day was going to go. And it drove me crazy. I think this can be especially challenging if one of the couple is a big extrovert and the other is a big introvert, because sharing the same space is tough when you have differing expectations about how a space should be used and when it should be used. My husband and I cannot share an office because he works on the computer and wants to have it dark and have shades on the window. I need a lot of light, especially if I'm working on some of my art projects. So I have lots of windows, and the windows are always open. I like lots of light. And if we had to share a space in that regard, that really would not work for us. We both like watching TV in the evenings, at least sometimes, and we don't always like watching the same show. So fortunately, we have two TV spaces. My husband has a lovely little spot in the basement that he's created, his own little man cave, and he'll go down there and ride his stationary bike and watch whatever he wants to watch, and I'll be upstairs watching the TV up here. And then we get together at the end of the evening and share what we've watched. But sharing space for us in that regard wouldn't work either. Maybe one person likes to have music going on all the time, and the other person doesn't, or doesn't want that kind of music playing. So that's why there's headphones. And my husband and I do try to keep our house fairly quiet. We both use headphones, because if I'm listening to something or watching something that he's not interested in, he doesn't want to have that noise obstructing his space. So we try to respect each other in the way we share our space. I think the key to making it work in second half of life when you're both retired is, one, to check your expectations, and the other is to talk about it. If you can't talk about it and talk about your expectations and what's different, and then the third thing is respecting each other's boundaries, respecting what each other needs as you retire, as you move into this really new season of life together. So I hope you're able to do that. I hope you're able to identify your expectations, talk about what it is you really need, and how you can work together to share the space you have. So let me know how it's going. What kind of critical expectations have you discovered as you've thought about it? And how are you discussing those and giving space to your spouse? I hope you have a great time discovering this new second half of life together.